October 1907. Banks across America are failing. Depositors are crowded outside branches, desperate to pull their money out before the doors lock for good. The U.S. Treasury is virtually empty, and the president has no viable plan to stop the bleeding. The entire economy is on the brink of collapse. A private citizen steps in. John Pierpont Morgan, 70 years old, invites New York's elite financiers to his personal library, locks the heavy doors, and refuses to let them leave until they put their own fortunes on the line to save the country. 6 years later, Morgan dies. When his will is read, his business partners expect to find a fortune in the billions. Instead, the final ledger entry reveals an estate worth roughly $80 million. A massive sum for the era, but surprisingly small for the man who single-handedly bailed out the United States. When John D. Rockefeller heard the final number, he reportedly scoffed. And to think, he wasn't even a rich man.
Rockefeller missed the point. Amateurs obsess over a static number in a bank account. Morgan built permanent leverage, engineering a 5-part system to dictate the underlying architecture of how money moves. In the late 1880s, American industry was a bloodbath. Railroads were overbuilt, competing steel companies were slashing prices to the point of bankruptcy. Everyone was losing money, and terrified investors refused to finance new projects. Where the market saw a disaster, Morgan saw an opening. His first rule of wealth: chaos is an invitation. While other financiers retreated, he walked straight toward the collapsing industries to buy up the wreckage. Today, the largest private equity firms run this exact play. When a modern recession hits and valuations plummet, these funds deploy billions to acquire distressed assets at massive discounts. To a financial architect, a market crash is a manufactured window for cheap acquisition. The fear clears the room, leaving the assets available for the taking. Morgan didn't just buy the failing railroads. He forced the rival executives into a room and made them cooperate. He restructured their massive debts and placed his own people on their boards of directors. The press called this Morganization. It outlines his second rule: reorganize, don't compete. He eliminated the cutthroat rivalry to build a centralized, highly profitable network. In 1901, he scaled this approach up, executing a $480 million buyout of Andrew Carnegie's entire steel empire. He combined it with several rivals to form U.S. Steel, America's first billion-dollar corporation. His target was the costly infighting dragging down everyone's profits. This is Rule 3, control the peace, not the war. Morgan wanted to dictate the industry's baseline rules. You see this structure replicated by modern tech monopolies. Companies like Amazon or Apple avoid fighting for minor market share against individual merchants or app developers. They own the underlying platform where all those competitors are forced to operate. They demonstrate that the ultimate position of power is designing the track, setting the conditions for every other participant. Which brings us back to that locked library in 1907. Morgan forced New York's wealthiest men to pool their capital, injecting targeted liquidity into the specific banks needed to stop the cascading collapse. This perfectly executes his fourth rule: be essential in a crisis. When the entire financial system depends entirely on your participation to survive, you possess leverage that cash alone cannot buy. The United States government watched this happen and realized they were completely reliant on a single private citizen. To fix this vulnerability, Congress created the Federal Reserve in 1913, a central bank modeled directly on Morgan's library bailout. Morgan's final rule is to build in your image. His private solution to a banking panic was permanently institutionalized as the nation's monetary authority. Today, we call this dynamic too big to fail. Megabanks deliberately embed themselves so deeply into the plumbing of the economy that the government is forced to step in and protect them when things go wrong. Morgan's personal $80 million is long gone, but the institutions modeled in his image, the massive industrial conglomerates, the Federal Reserve System, continue to dictate the modern economy over a century later. When you look at modern lists of the world's richest billionaires, stop looking at their fluctuating dollar amounts. Look instead at the critical infrastructure and platforms those individuals control. The ultra-wealthy seek ownership of the board itself. Subscribe for more, and I'll see you in the next video.